We've all heard that expression, winners never quit and quitters never win. And while that may be super cute and inspirational on an Instagram blog post, when applied to our career, it simply is one of the worst advice that I've ever heard. For a savvy, ambitious professional like you, it is important to know when to strategically throw in the towel and just move on. So in today's video, we will talk about when quitting is one of the smartest career moves that you can make to advance your career and to get ahead. So, are you ready? Let's do this. This is Keisha, your career and business confidence coach, equipping you to win by owning your inherent brilliance, eliminating your shrinking tendencies so that you will dominate in your field or industry. Click on the subscribe button below as well as the bell so that you will be notified of when I upload my weekly Wednesday videos. And you can follow me on Instagram at Keisha Winter for more frequent updates. Before we get into the legitimate reasons for quitting our job, it is important to note that quitting is not always the answer. Sometimes we need the privacy of being in a smaller role. Sometimes we need to stay in our organization to be able to build both the characteristics and the skills that are needed to propel us and prepare us for bigger roles and bigger opportunities ahead, where the exposure is too broad, that it's not this learning place that we can develop and grow and mold our skills and character. Because sometimes our character cannot keep us where our skill has taken us. I'm gonna let that one sink in for a minute. So as I was saying, quitting is not always bad. Sometimes quitting can be good. I'm gonna refer to this book by Seth Godin called The Dip. If you have not read it, it is absolutely amazing. It's a quick read. I would highly recommend that you read it. But he was saying in this book, quitting is bad when it's reactional and emotional. Quitting is bad when it's at the wrong time. Quitting is bad when you only do it because you're in a painful situation. And quitting is bad when you're doing it for the wrong reason. But when quitting is well thought out and well planned out, aligned to your values, your long-term goals, and your mission, it can be very good. Quitting is good when it is strategic, in other words. Now, with no further delay, here are the 10 legitimate strategic reasons that you should quit your job. Reason number one to quit your job is if your strengths and your interests are not aligned to the role that you are currently doing. Look, if your strengths and interests are not aligned to the job that you're currently in, you will absolutely struggle. You will hit your limits. You will not excel. Now, if you are in a role that is aligned to the things that you naturally bring to the table or the things that you're passionate about, you will excel. You will be able to do well in this role. It doesn't mean, however, that you won't have to work hard. There's a difference between having to work hard, because in order to excel and learn and grow, we all have to work hard. But struggle is a completely different thing. I'll illustrate this with an example. I had an employee in my organization. He was in the finance organization, and for some reason, I'm not sure what his motivation was to get into a finance role, but he decided this is what he wanted to do. He was very committed, he was very hardworking, but it just wasn't working out. We ended up putting him on a performance improvement plan. His manager was miserable, he wasn't sleeping well at night, and it was a really tough situation. And I picked up the phone and I called him, and I just had a real come to Jesus discussion, as they say, with him. And I said, look, this is not working out. You're miserable, I'm miserable, everybody's miserable. Why don't you move on and take a role that I think is much more aligned with both your background in school as well as something that you're naturally interested in, which is sales and marketing. He was very reluctant. He didn't want to do it. However, I had the tough conversation and I pushed him. It wasn't an easy conversation to have, but as I tell people all the time, sometimes you have to be mean to be nice, because he was committed to a thing that was really not the thing that he was meant to do. And I have to tell you, he called me back after 8 months of landing a new position. After we told him to look for a new role, he called me back 8 months later, and he said within 6 months he had been promoted. And by the time we had the conversation, he had a team reported to him What an amazing success story. But if we hadn't pushed him and told him to go to do something that was more aligned to his skills, he wouldn't have wanted to quit, because he was the kind of person that didn't want to change from something that he started. He wanted to see the thing all the way through. But it wasn't working. It was noble, I should say, in its intention, but it simply wasn't working. And for him, the best thing to do was to quit and to do something that was more aligned with his strength so that magic could happen. What about you? What is it? We all have reasons why we don't quit, why we don't move on, whether or not it's because we have to pay bills or we're afraid of change, because most people are afraid of change. There are many reasons why people remain in situations that are not ideal to them. But as I said, if you're in a role that's aligned to your strengths as well as your passion, it will be amazing how you'll see the magic happens and that the struggle will end. So are you ready to get off the struggle bus? If you're ready, drop it in the comments below. Hashtag off the struggle bus. Reason number 2, you have found a better opportunity. This is an easy one that I won't spend a lot of time on, because if you found a role that gives you an opportunity to grow, to learn the skills that you need to advance in your career, or it provides even more compensation that you expected, or you're working with someone who is willing to advocate for you or supports you and help champion your career advancement, that is the ideal situation, and you don't need to think twice about whether or not you should leave your current position and take that brand new opportunity that is going to open doors for you. However, I will give you this one warning. Sometimes people get super excited when they go out on job interviews and they don't realize that interview is actually a two-way thing. People are interviewing you to sell you the company if you're a great talent, but you're also expected, for your own well-being, to interview the company to make sure that the culture is a good fit for you, that the company is in a good financial position currently, so that you don't get hired and jump into a situation that's actually worse than the one that you're currently in, so that you don't go into a position where you take the role and 6 months later you get laid off because the company is not in a good financial condition. So before you make that jump, make sure that you talk to people that are in the organization, working for the department, and for the people that you're going to be working with and for, to make sure that it is a wise move and a great choice. Reason number 3 is that you are no longer learning and growing. Sometimes we end up being in positions much longer than we ought to, and then we hit a ceiling because there is nothing new. We're doing the same thing. It becomes monotonous day in, day out, and simply it leads to burnout and a sense of a lack of motivation, which also negatively impacts our performance. So I would say, if you're not able to work on projects that allow you to learn and grow, or even take training that allow you to learn new skills, that it's time to actually move on from that current position. Reason number 4 is when your manager holds you back. This definitely falls under the category of hashtag struggle bus that I just talked about. You will never win if you work for a manager that actively tries to hold you back from advancing your career. Now, I didn't say the manager wasn't your best friend or didn't like you or whatever it is. If they may not have the same personality as you do, but they recognize your skill set and your strengths, and they're willing to advocate and support you, then absolutely, it's a role to continue in. But if they're actively trying to sabotage you, you'll never win. It is time to move on. I believe that you should go and work in places that you are celebrated, not tolerated. So it's time to update your resume. Now, you have to do it in a strategic way. I don't want you emotionally to quit your job and to be out of a job for 3 to 6 months while you're job searching, especially if you don't have savings. So I have some resources that will help to support you as you bridge that gap. So in the link in the description below, you will find a free download, 10 ways to get your boss to support your career, even if your personalities don't click. Download that, and it will help you to bridge the gap between now and the time you find your new role. And second, actually will help you prepare for those job interviews. 10 common interview questions that will help you prepare to land that dream role. Reason number 5 is that there is no pathway to advancement. If you look above you and the only role you see is that of your manager, and there are no other opportunities for you to go in, and you know that your manager, him or her will be there for the rest of their life until the day they die or until the day they retire, it is probably time for you to start looking for a new role. It doesn't make any sense that you continue to be in a role where you're not learning, you're not growing, and there's no opportunity for advancement. Time to move on. Reason number 6 is that we dread going to work every single day, particularly because you work in a toxic work environment. Look, life is too short, particularly when we spend the majority of our waking hours at work. It is really difficult day in, day out to subject ourselves to a toxic environment. Now, as I said before, I don't want you to make an emotional decision, and I have resources. I have a YouTube video which I will drop in the link below in terms of talking about how to survive and thrive in toxic environments. It's not encouraging you to stay in a place that is toxic, but what it will do, it will give you tools and skills to be able to navigate the situation while you are working on your plan B, while you're updating your resume and you're going out to your job interviews. Reason number 7 is when you don't care and your motivation is gone. Look, when you're in a position where you're frustrated and you're no longer caring about the role, your performance goes down. And when your performance goes down and your motivation goes down, you are not contributing your best self. You're no longer bringing your best self to work, and so it's time to look for a new role. I have a situation that I had a few years ago where a coworker of mine, she was absolutely brilliant, really good at what she did, always the smartest person in the room. And what really also differentiated her was her energy, her passion, her attitude. She was like the nicest person on earth, and everybody wanted to call her just because she was pleasant to work with. And she applied for a role as the leader of the group because our leader had resigned at the time. And I got to tell you, the organization did her dirty, that they told her she was going to get the role and all this stuff. And then they ended up bringing someone in. They did a search. They brought someone in to have her report into and have all of us report into. And I noticed that her attitude changed. She became bitter, not better, but super bitter. And she was negative. It was negatively impacting the team. It was negatively impacting the new leader, which obviously it wasn't his fault that he was brought in over this person. But it began to change who she was. And I just said to her as a friend, I was just like, look, this place, you can't let this place change who you are. You are a brilliant, amazing, energetic woman. And to allow the organization to drain the life out of you is just not worth it. And so what she ended up doing was quitting and finding a place where, as I said before, she was celebrated and not tolerated, and she continued to be her amazing self and continued to be promoted and ascend in the role. So I would say to you, if you're in a position when you're no longer motivated and you're frustrated, it is time to move on. Do not allow that place or the company or the organization or the people that you're working with to change who you want to be, to change you from showing and bringing your best self to work every single day. Reason number 8 is when the work schedule negatively impacts your personal life and relationships. If you're not able to spend the time that you want to spend with your family, or you go home in a super bad mood and you're snapping at the people in your life, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it to get to the top of the corporate ladder with no one there to support you, family, friends, spouse, whatever it is. And so if you realize it's negatively impacting you in your relationships and you're not able to use effective stress management techniques, it's just maybe a sign that your body is telling you that this is time to move on. Reason number 9 is related to reason number 8, but I wanted to separate it because it definitely has to do with you as a person. It's if the stress is negatively impacting your health. I know that there are times where we have to work very hard and we're in tough situations, and we even have to employ stress management techniques. But if you tried the meditation, if you tried the exercise, if you tried all the stress management techniques out there that you've heard, and it is still negatively impacting your health, you still can't sleep at night, you're developing ailments in your body, whether or not it's high blood pressure, heart palpitations, breathing problems, whatever it is time, your body is telling you it is time to move on from the role. Sometimes we stay in a position that negatively impacts our health because there are financial reasons or obligations that we have. But I have to tell you, when your health deteriorates, that will also negatively impact your finances because your medical bill goes up. You may have to miss many days of work, and it's time to think of a strategy on how you can transition out of this role so that you can get your life and your health and your mental sanity back. Reason number 10 is when you question the integrity of the company's leader. There's always going to be a situation where you don't see eye to eye with leadership and you're needing to work through situations. But if you have come to the conclusion that these leaders have no integrity and it really negatively impacts your outlook and your trust of the organization, that also is time for you to move on. Because when you work in a situation where the organization cannot be trusted, you cannot trust them, you end up being miserable. And the one thing I always tell people is that you do not want to sell your soul for a paycheck. I think that's a hashtagable quote. Don't sell your soul to be for success. Don't sell your soul to be promoted. If you recognize that the leaders are shady and they're doing questionable things, you have options, and it's time to exercise your options. Remove yourself from that situation and go to work for a company that you respect its leaders and the integrity and the value that they bring to the table. And I know I just finished my 10 reasons, but I'm just gonna throw in a bonus one. If you are searching for YouTube videos on how to know when it's time to quit your job, probably time for you to quit your job. I just had to throw that one in. Are there any other reasons that you think I left out? Drop it in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure this whole community would love to hear your thoughts as well. If you found any of these insights helpful, please subscribe to my channel, and if you're feeling generous, share it with a friend. Look, if you've decided to quit your job, let's just be strategic about it. I know when you're in a stressful position or situation for a really long time, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, burnt out, and it could even negatively impact your confidence. So I need you to get that energy up so that you can go out and interview with gusto and to bring your confidence and your energy back. So I have a playlist that is down below on self-confidence. You can check it out, but most importantly, I have a YouTube video that I will link up on the left side, I think it's gonna be, around how to interview for a role confidently. And finally, remember, you were not meant to shrink down lower. So rise up and own your power. See you next week.